Hello, everybody. Welcome to New Life students. My name is Jesse. I'm a member of the presentation team. It may have been a while since I've been up here speaking, so if you don't know me, I lead a 6th grade small group here at New Life. I play drums on the weekends, and I live here in Butler, but I'm not from Butler. I grew up in Freedom, just like Josh, and I graduated 2009, and I moved up here to Butler about 2015, and that's right around the time when I accepted Jesus for real, in my life, kind of made him my Lord rather than just my Savior, as we so often say around here at New Life. I started picking up on what it really means to be a follower once I started attending church here. So, a little bit about me. Growing up, my mom and dad, they were pretty good parents, I had 3 sisters, and we fought a lot. And up until the time I was about 8 years old, we had a pretty normal childhood. We fought a lot, me and my sisters. I think that's normal, though. We weren't really good at talking about stuff with our mom and dad, like when it came to report cards and grades. My dad was pretty scary, so we would just, hi Sadie! So we would just, we would just kind of be a little bit scared of my dad when it came to things like that, because he tended to get a little bit mad, when I know it came out of love, a place of love in his heart, I think, anyways, but he just didn't know how to handle discipline in a way that wasn't screaming to make you scared to not do it again. So we grew up kind of tiptoeing around my dad because he was scary. I knew he loved me, but with all the screaming and yelling around the house and feeling like he just was disappointed in me kind of in a lot of ways, I just started to learn to avoid him, maybe kind of try and avoid confrontation by lying, and I wouldn't say that my mom didn't really discourage that either at certain times, She was kind of the one that I ran to when I had a problem, which built some distance between me and my dad early on, We started to just not see eye to eye because we weren't being honest with each other. I wasn't really letting him be a part of my life because I was scared of him, and he wasn't really trying very hard to gently react to things. So there was a lot of things that could have been done differently. But when you're in the moment of it, it's not as easy done as it is said. You can think man, you always find yourself afterwards thinking, I wish I would have did that differently. I wish I would have responded to that differently. And I'm sure my dad has had those moments. Actually, I know he has, because my dad's a drinker. He's not I wouldn't call him an alcoholic because I don't want to judge my father. I think it's for yourself to kind of admit if you have a problem. I'm not going to point my finger and say he's got a problem. But my dad is a drinker. Probably what most people would consider an alcoholic. And here's how I know my dad wishes he could have done a little bit differently certain times. I always remembered my dad coming home, coming into my bedroom, kneeling next to my bed, and shaking my hand and saying, Jess, how you doing? I love you. But he reeked of alcohol, reeked of cigarettes. And I knew that he was, I knew he was doing his best. I know he loved me. I know his dad didn't really show him a whole lot of patience either. So I think in his eyes, he was doing the best that he could. And that's anybody. That's all you can do. You know, I see my dad, and I try and think, how could I do better? You know, I don't want to do the same things that he did to me. But at the same time, I definitely want to make sure that. My dad did a lot of things really well. And at a certain point, I just decided that I wasn't going to listen because I had built up resentment and bitterness in my heart towards him. It wasn't just him, it was me. I decided to go my own way. You know, I decided to cut him out of my life, and I took the easiest route possible. Around 8th grade, my mom decided that she didn't love my dad anymore. You know, I didn't hear much about it. I was probably, I was 14, I think, 13, 14. So I didn't really think much about how, you know, I didn't have a whole lot to give to my mom or dad at that point emotionally, or to talk to them. So I was just kind of along for the ride in a lot of ways. I was pretty busy trying to keep out of the way. I'd spent a lot of time at my friends' houses, playing video games. Still pretty innocent at that time in my life. Pretty innocent. Still got into some sin issues earlier on. But anyways, I remember my mom coming into my room one night, and my dad was gone. He was working out of town. He was in West Virginia. And she asked me if I was happy, you know, if I was okay with their marriage and stuff, and if you know, if she wanted it. Basically, she had basically asked for my permission if, like, we could take a break from Dad, you know, to get away from him, which, you know, it was a pretty emotional wreck in my house quite often. You know, my dad was always yelling. He was always slamming drawers, slamming doors, punching holes in the wall, punching holes in the doors. But I mean, we dealt with it. I mean, it wasn't anything not normal to us. I think we were used to it, because my mom, she never really stuck up for herself. You know, she never really asked him to, you know, I don't know. But I think my mom was pretty passive on the whole thing. You know, she didn't really talk to my dad about what he could have done differently at that time, like, or given him an ultimatum even. She just decided that the best thing would have been to get us out of the house, because she thought we weren't safe. And I don't know. So anyways, that's a bridge I haven't really crossed yet as far as looking at my relationship with my mom. Right now I'm talking about my dad. So we moved out, and it was my freshman year in high school. And that's basically when, you know, coupling the fact that, like, I was already a rebellious boy because of the fact that, you know, my dad was so hard on me, and I learned to lie. I learned to just do what I wanted out of spite, out of bitterness towards my mom and dad. You know, more my dad, but you know, I was just hard at that point, just really hardened, and I took full advantage of the fact that we were leaving, and I was like, at the time, I was completely on board with it. You know, I didn't have to think twice, because I knew right away that I was going to be able to do whatever I wanted, and that's really all it came down to. It was totally, you know, it was a selfish thing for me. I was just like, you know, no more Dad. Like, man, nobody's gonna yell at me anymore. Like, I don't have to keep up my grades. I don't have to, because my mom was always so nice about everything. So I took full advantage of it. And, you know, that's freshman year, it was all such a blur, high school, but from the time I turned 15, I started smoking cigarettes openly in front of my mom, because she was so passive. I just started getting involved in cigarettes. I started hanging out with this older guy that was out of high school, and he was buying me cigarettes, and he started getting me drunk, and we were going to heavy metal shows. And then next thing you know, I started letting my hair grow really long, and I pierced my lips and started wearing tight girl jeans and all kinds of like colorful, rebellious clothing. It showed, that I was just acting out. And, I had a father wound, really. I just never really connected with my dad, and I never allowed him to be my dad, And it was hard. It was hard for me. It was hard for him because he didn't know how to act towards me. He didn't know how to emotionally pour into my life, and I didn't understand that. I felt that was unfair. So I just moved on with my life, and my dad would call me all through high school, and I avoided him, and so did my little sister, and we were just living it up, and we avoided my dad, and he would call us, and he would be crying, and just like trying to get us to come over. He would try to father us from a distance, but he couldn't discipline us when we were at our mom's, and that's where we stayed. So a couple years into high school, my mom came to us with this news. It might not even have been a couple years, man. It was a short amount of time. She came to us with this news. I want you guys to meet my friend Tom. I'm thinking of, that's what she said. We went out for breakfast with this guy. His name was Tom. And we sat down for breakfast, and we're eating, and my mom breaks us this news, says, I'm thinking about having Tom move in with us. And we're like, what? Like, we didn't know what to say. And it's almost, once again, like she was asking our permission, but she put us on the spot, and we didn't want to be mean. We didn't want to, I don't know, man. It was just a bad time, really bad time. I kind of felt forced to say, whatever you want to do, Mom, whatever makes you happy. But it felt wrong. But it continued to happen. We just went on with it. At that time, my older sister was living with us, so it was the 3 siblings. And my older sister was very angry about it, and she decided to move out. And my mom and her had a falling out. And my sister engaged with my dad again. She moved back in with him, and they made amends. It's a long story, really. There was a lot of hurt involved, but I continued to live with my mom until the time I graduated high school. And my behavior did not improve at all. It got much, much worse. And in the years to follow after high school, I graduated 2009, and I was basically drunk and high from the time I graduated until 2014. I mean, just to give you a quick overview, I don't want to give it too much into it because it's a really long story, but I was just trying to throw my life away, man. I wanted to do it all. I wanted to chase that dream. I wanted to be drunk. I wanted to be high. I wanted to be doped up all the time. I wanted to be the most exciting, engaging person that I could be. I'd go out to the bar with my friends, and I was living paycheck to paycheck, just spending $600 a week on booze and drugs. And I just throwing my life away, just throwing it all away. At that time, I was working with my dad, actually, and our relationship wasn't getting any better, but we had reconnected, and we were just actually starting to see that, like, there was a lot of things that were left between us that weren't dealt with, and we started to fight, like a lot, like verbally, almost fist fighting, to the point where, once again, I had to get away from him. But things have been, it was different. So it's a really long story. All that to say, about the time I got into 2014, 2015, I had a come to Jesus moment, as we call it. I was in a really bad place, and I was super depressed, and I was just, man, I had nothing left. I was so just drained. The life I was living was not making me happy at all. I was so depressed, and I had nobody. Like, it was crazy. Even my mom and dad, I felt like I didn't even really know them anymore. My whole family was torn apart. My sisters were, off, getting married and having kids, and I was working at a pizza shop and just living paycheck to paycheck. I just felt like I had nothing, man. I thought about some pretty bad things, man. I thought about ending it all. I was in that place. I was depressed. So I got advice from a girl that didn't like me, that I did like, and I tried to date her, probably thinking that it'd take all the pain away. And she amused me for a little bit, but she ended up not wanting the same things that I wanted. She couldn't give me what I wanted anyways. It's just that I wanted her to fix my life. Anyways, she was cool enough to tell me, Jesse, I think you should go see a counselor. I just see that you're hurting. I can't help you. You should go get help. So I went and got help. I took her advice, which I don't know why I took her advice, but I guess I was just at the end of myself, and I went to a counselor. I went to a Christian counselor, which was, I would have called myself a Christian at that time. I mean, I don't know why. Looking at my life now in the way that I live for God today, it's just kind of funny. I never really felt like I had a relationship with God. I knew who Jesus was, though. I mean, I knew he could save me from my sins, but I never gave my life to him. So I went to this counselor, and we started looking at my life, and I started talking. And then once I started to realize where all the hurt was in my heart, I started to cry and bawl my eyes out, and I just couldn't believe that I had gone on this long without letting anybody in or without, talking about it. So it was an amazing experience, and I honestly felt that God had led me there, because that's when I started to first feel healing. Like, I had felt so depressed, so empty for so long. When I felt this healing start to happen, I'm like, this has to be God, because I finally felt life. It was like I was in the worst place ever. I wanted to kill myself. I hated who I was. Every day waking up feeling empty. And finally, just to feel something genuine for once, when I had been living my life around a lie for so long, man, it was like a fresh spring of water. It was just amazing. And that's where my journey began. That's where my journey began. My counselor told me, I won't see you anymore unless you quit smoking weed, because it's illegal, unless you quit doing all those other drugs, and I want you to cut your drinking back to 3 times a week. I mean, I was 21. I was a legal drinker. So I went home and I prayed about it, because, like I said, I had an awakening. I started reading my Bible, and I just was changed instantly, man. God had started speaking to me through the Bible, and that never happened for me before. I was in tears. I was deeply moved by his word, and I was like, wow, no more crap life for me, man. This is the life for me, because this is truth. This is life right here. There's nothing better that I have ever found in 10 years of searching, and I've tried it all, here it is. So I gave my life to God, man, 100%. The next week I went in. Well, that day I quit drinking. I quit smoking cigarettes. The next week I went into my counseling session. I was 7 days clean, give or take. But I never picked it up again after that. I mean, which is crazy because I had built my life around drinking, smoking, and doing all this stuff. I hung out with people every day, and they were all like, "Where you at, dude?" And I was just like, "Man, I'm just taking some time off, But by God's grace, I was healed that night, I mean, and that lasted. My clean streak lasted for 3 years, and then I had a bit of a bump, I guess you call it, bump in the road, a relapse. But we all make mistakes, and sometimes that's what the Christian life is the flesh is always still there, telling you that the world is. So that's a long story, but I don't beat myself up about that because what you do is you just move on from where you were yesterday, go on today. So our take-home point is this: God breaks the chains of sin, and that's exactly what God did for my life. 100%, no doubt. He did it overnight. It was amazing, and He can do it for you, and He will do it for you. He wants to do it for you. I don't know where you're at tonight. If you're living a lie, if you're taking advantage of your mom and dad, if you're sneaking around, it's gonna come back on you, man. It's gonna build up. It's gonna come back on you. So I want to tell you guys a story about the parable son, and I don't know if you ever heard it, but it's a good story, and I love this story because I feel like this is me, in a lot of ways. Like, this is like my story. I can relate with a lot of the things in the Bible, man, because Jesus came for sinners, not for the righteous. And that's what this story is telling us about. And I'm definitely a sinner, and all of us are. There's only those that think they're not, man. So, and I've been there too. So here we go. I'm going to talk about it here. So tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. This made the Pharisees and teachers of religious law complain that he was associating with such sinful people, even eating with them. To illustrate the point further, Jesus told them this story. So, this is exactly what I'm saying, that the religious people, they're just offended that Jesus is associating with sinful people. And that just hurts me. I'm glad that Jesus associates with sinful people because, man, like, this story's for me, this story's for you. So, going on, Jesus told them this story. A man had 2 sons. The younger son told his father, "I want my share of your estate now before you die." So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. A few days later, this younger son packed all his belongings and moved to a distant land, and there he wasted all his money in wild living. About the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. He persuaded a local farmer to hire him, and the man sent him into his fields to feed the pigs. The young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding the pigs looked good to him, but no one gave him anything. When he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, "At home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, 'Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant.' So he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against you in both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son.' But his father said to the servants, 'Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet, and kill the calf we have been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast, for this son of mine was dead and has now returned to life. He was lost, but now he is found.' So the party began. Meanwhile, the older son was in the fields working. When he returned home, he heard music and dancing in the house, and he asked one of the servants what was going on. "Your brother is back," he was told, "and your father has killed the fattened calf. We are celebrating because of his safe return." The older brother was angry and wouldn't go in. His father came out and begged him, but he replied, "All these years I've slaved for you and never once refused to do a single thing you told me to. And in all that time, you never gave me even one young goat for a feast with my friends. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf." His father said to him, "Look, dear son, you have always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this happy day, for your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, but now he is found." So I didn't really go into this, but the series we're in right now is called Tune My Heart. We're talking about a song tonight called "Lift Your Head, Weary Sinner." So I just want to compare the two, and really, actually, I can draw from my story into this as well. But comparing the two, I love the song "Lift Your Head, Weary Sinner" because it begins by saying, "Lift your head, weary sinner, the river's just ahead." And, like I said, in my life, when I found God, it was like fresh water, man. It was like I was dying of thirst. And here he was, just this salvation, and I needed it so bad. And I couldn't turn away from it when I had found it. It was like what I had been searching for. I was in a place of desperation. And the song goes on to say that the river's just ahead, down the path of forgiveness, salvation's waiting there. And that's the journey that this young son's going on. Our main scripture focus is that the son says, "Father, I have sinned against you in heaven, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son." So the son's heart begins with confession. He begins with confessing his sins, and almost asking for forgiveness. Just putting it all out there, whatever the cost is. He knows that the life he was living was no longer worth living. He was starving to death, and nobody was there for him. And this picture of his father in his head, he said, "Man, my dad, he's got all of these wonderful things at home. Even the servants at home, they don't go without eating. Like, I'll just go home to see if I can serve my dad, not even as a son." He says, "I'm not even worthy to be called your son, but man, I have sinned against you." Like, that's just confession right there. That just puts it into his dad's hands. Just admitting, I did wrong, I don't know, I can't do anything to fix this, but this is where I'm at. I'm sorry. And, that's where we all have to start with God. And he always meets us there. And he doesn't meet us from a place that, I think I'm good enough, but it's the place that you're not good enough. The song goes on, "Come all saints and sinners, you can't outrun God," which is funny. I mean, I think the song is really, really just like this idea of the parable of the lost son, because it's got a picture of the father running, and the song talks about, "You cannot outrun God. Whatever you've done can't overcome the power of the blood. And if you're lost and wrecked again, come stumbling in like a prodigal child." So, that's the song. It's talking about the parable of the prodigal son. And, this son, he does come home, and he admits his sins to his father. And to his surprise, not only does his father run to meet him, as soon as he turns away and comes back, his father's there. He's actually waiting for him almost. He runs to meet him, and he embraces him, and he gives him, he adorns his, he gives him a ring. He gives them a feast. He puts a robe on them, I think. But man, he just honors his son. He celebrates. He's so happy that he's home. He invites his whole household to celebrate with him. It's pretty awesome, you know. And in the same way for us, I think what Jesus was saying, and in the same way for us, I mean, God says that there's more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner that repents than 99 righteous ones. You know what I mean? The parable of the lost ones. And those are right here in Luke 15, the two parables prior to this are about lost things. The parable of the lost coin, the parable of the lost sheep, and now we're at the parable of the lost son. So really God's trying to say something here. It's like, you know, you might be found today, good for you. You know, we're glad you're here. But God wants to find the one that thinks there's nothing left for him, you know, that wants to give up. God's there. He's waiting for him. He's waiting for you. He's waiting for me. He's there for you. And he just wants you to turn away and just come back to him and give your life to him. And, you know, the real answer here, the real application for our lives is admitting that we have a problem, you know. That's where the Son began. That's where I began. That's where God met me. That's where the Father met the Son, you know. Welcomed him back into his home. And he'll do the same thing for you. It's a daily thing. You know, you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to not be a sinner as long as you're here on earth. There's always going to be a war between your relationship with God and your flesh. So what you need to do is daily come before God and say, Father, I've sinned against you. You know, I've sinned against heaven and you. My allegiances aren't always focused on God. You know, I want them to be, and I know that's the best thing for me, but so often I find myself distracted, and, you know, that's not the best thing for me. So I know if you will do this next step, you will be blessed by it. God will pour into your life quicker than you can receive it, you know, more than you can receive. He'll abundantly bless you. So this is their next step. And if you want to do this with me, we'll go ahead and say it together. And I will confess my sins to God daily. So I just hope this was a good encouragement to you guys. And I love you guys. And talk to you later. Have a good small group.